Sit by myself.
Welcome to the Think Tank
Talking
Podcast.
to
We
the
are back. And welcome back to another episode of the Think Tank Podcast. I am your host, Randy Hayes. Thank you for joining us. I'm excited to talk about this topic. I have an amazing young lady who is really giving life into the community through her various works. Hopefully y'all have a chance to look into some of the things that she has going on, whether it be the podcast or Sensual Yoga or even just her daily routine with eating habits and things of that nature. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Miss Ashley Aset. How are you doing today, Ashley?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. So do us a little bit of favor, Ashley. Just tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, what it is that you do, where you're at now.
Okay. Well, my name is Ashley Aset. I'm from Atlanta, Georgia, but I've been in Northern Virginia for several years. So I'm currently residing in the Richmond area. So I've been out here for probably about a year now, I would say, in Richmond. And for the last year, what I've been doing is really discovering my creativity on a deeper level. And doing so has led me into sensual yoga. It's led me into my ancestral history, which really kind of allowed me to dive into healing, dive into the podcast, which I have, which also speaks of healing from a cultural perspective and just how we maneuver throughout our society and what the cultural norms are. So that's pretty much what I've been up to and what I'm working on right now.
Okay, that's what's up. I had a chance to meet Ashley a few years back. There was this couples gathering at some mutual friend spot, and she was one of the couples there along with my wife, and I think I even had my toddler son tagging along at that point. So
I think so.
Yeah, and I've had a chance to follow her journey as she's been making this transformation. And we know all transformations aren't necessarily good transformations, but it's been pretty cool seeing how she has grown into her own throughout this transformation, and that's why I'm happy to have her here today. So let's get into it, man. We talking about sensual yoga. That's different from sexual yoga, right? We're talking about sensual yoga.
Yeah.
Okay. So sensual yoga. Tell us a little bit about your journey into sensual yoga. How did you get to this point?
Okay. Well, sensual yoga, just to give you a better understanding, it's pretty much yoga in its regular form, but slowed down and focuses on hip opening, hip movement. And that is really for the sacral chakra area. So if anyone's familiar with yoga, you'll know that yoga works different energetic points throughout the body, ranging from the top of your head to the bottom of your feet. And so the one for sensual yoga is the one towards the womb area. For most women, our hips are really, really tight, especially if you've given birth and things of that sort. And it's just not a common area where a lot of movement takes place unless it's intentional. But then there's also, that's where our emotions get stored. And so this style of yoga is meant to release those emotions, open those hips, and create a better range of motion and flexibility in the day.
Okay. Well, you made mention of it. Tell us a little bit more about chakras. I've seen it. Just while I've been on IG, doing my searches and stuff like that. You made mention of chakras, and you said that's where a lot of the emotions are stored in that particular region. So, can you just elaborate for folks what you mean?
Oh yes. So with the sacral chakra, there are 7 different chakra points in the body, and so I like to look at them as connected to different organs in the body. So the one that we were talking about when discussing sensual yoga is the hip and womb area. So pretty much where your women bear children, the uterus, the fallopian tube, that area specifically, we want to point out organs. And then also in the digestive tract. So
that's huge.
Think about like
that's like our
think
second
about, like,
brain, right? Is our digestive tract.
It is. So if you've ever had a really intense emotional experience, whether it be anger, sadness, depression, those types of emotions also get stored in the body as energy. And a lot of times we don't realize that when we're feeling those emotions, how we clench up and we tense up. And for women, a lot of it is men too. You tense up in the hip area, and then you quite naturally begin to tighten your hips without realizing it. And so a lot of women who do that practice really tend to feel a lot more emotionally lighter, because that it helps really release energy that you just haven't dealt with. I mean, I'm sure you can think of many times where you've had an encounter throughout the day that upsets you. That is energy still that gets stuck up. And if we don't do anything about it, let's just say you just go on with your day the next day and there was no sense of release, you never did anything to release that, your body is still holding on to it.
True. For those of y'all who have been following me, y'all know that I had I have a special connection with yoga. Some of y'all knew me as a yoga master back in my UMES days, so I appreciate that. And I got a book last year sometime that I plan on getting back on my yoga tip. So when I'm following Ashley and I see her do certain movements, and I remember when she really first started like posting videos on it, I was like, dang, she's doing that already, man. She just like started like a week ago. You really started going hard. So like, what were like some of the benefits? Like, it seems like you just caught the bug and really started gravitating to it when you started getting into yoga. What was that experience like, going from beginner to where you are now, where I would qualify you like in that pro range just about.
No, I feel like I have a little bit. But for me, I don't know. I never would have thought I liked yoga, because I heard about yoga years before I even started doing it. And I just was like, you already have to be flexible for that. I'm not doing that. And it was just until I actually gave it a try and realized how flexibility is built over a period of time, and just repetition and getting your body familiar with certain things, you'd be surprised what you can do in a short amount of time. And that's when I really fell in love with it, because I was like, it's not going to actually take me years to be able to do this and it not hurt. But it's also, I'm seeing, wow, I didn't know my body could do that. Oh crap, I didn't know my body could do that. So then I'm like, oh, well, what else can it do? So that's kind of what led me. Also, of course, the benefits that we discussed of it, I'm seeing tremendous changes in my body, my mind, and all of that. So it all came together, and I'm like, yeah, I get addicted to it. I don't know. That's how, if I really like something, I'm like, I want to do it every day.
No doubt. So when you started that journey, like, I know in a lot of your posts, you do a lot of juicing for meals. Is that something that you kind of started when you made that transformation, or how did that align with what you got going on?
The juicing came probably a year later after doing yoga, because I felt like yoga was a really good stage and start for me to really begin to heal my body.
Shout out to your nails, by the way. Those nails are they're fire. Yeah.
Thank you. For me to heal my body. And so then I really noticed, which is something that's very important with yoga, you'll start to change, your diet will start to change naturally, because as you're releasing that energy that's just been sitting stagnant, you'll no longer want to feel heavy, because you're going to start to feel really light. So then anything that's super dense, you're not going to want to put in your body, because you'll feel weighed down. And so that's when I really started changing my eating, because my body just didn't like that feeling anymore. And then juicing is when, I don't know about you, but sometimes I scroll through social media And I'll like clean out my feed and start following different people just so I can experience different perspectives. And I started following someone who was alkaline vegan, and it sparked an interest. And then I started following an herbalist, and you really start to gain knowledge and understanding, and then you do your research and you're like, oh crap. There's a lot of stuff going on out here with our food. There's a lot of things that just naturally aren't being done. And you really want to start to take your health into your own hands, because you kind of have to, especially with everything that was going on with COVID. It's still going on. You start to really want to take your health way more seriously. And I mean, I'm the type of person that once I've hit a certain goal, I'm like, okay, well, what else can we do? And so for me, juicing was like, I've never done juicing. I wanted to see how juicing could heal my body. I'm telling you, it's amazing.
So would you qualify yourself as a vegan, or how would you qualify yourself as far as your diet?
I think I used to qualify myself as a vegan, but here lately, what I've realized is that every now and then, in efforts to keep balance, you might have to do something that ventures off that box, and that's okay. And I was like, yes, I consider myself vegan because 98% of the time, that's what I'm going to be eating. If you're around me a lot, 90% of the time, I'm not going to touch certain things. But there are those few times where my body's like, look, I get what you're trying to do, but today I need more. It just really depends on the situation and what my body is calling for and what I have available at the moment. But I would say I'm like a 90% vegan.
I'm glad you touched on alkaline. Actually, that aligns pretty well with the next guest I have on the podcast. Shout out to Alkaline Thick. That'll be my next guest on the podcast. But I'd say probably around May or June of last year, I started increasing my water intake, but not just any water, alkaline water. And that was like a baby step for me. But I started noticing some of the differences, with my body taking it in right away. I know you're a little bit younger than me, Ashley. I think you just had a birthday, so I know you're a little bit younger than me. But when you start getting up in there in age, you start paying a little bit more attention to your digestive tract and whatnot. And it was just immediately when I started going hard and heavy with the alkaline water, I started finding my body releasing more toxins, and that was just the alkaline water aspect. I've been a little bit more conscious with some of the products I use alkaline wise. Shout out to the late great Dr. Sebi.
I know, yes.
And a lot of people, something that I really like alkaline, man. This is super weird, man, but I like key limes.
Oh yeah.
I love me some key limes.
They're every day. It's so good.
Yeah, my wife looks at me crazy when I'm just sucking on a key lime and stuff, man. But and they're hard to find in a lot of places. A lot of people, not a regular lime, a key lime. There's a huge difference in as far as base and acidity, things of that nature. Anyway, I digress. So I want to know, what are some of the benefits, as you've been going through this journey of, sensual yoga and really getting in touch with your sensuality? What are some of the, what is that transformation like, and what are some of the benefits that you've seen in just your personal journey?
Oh, okay. Well, the benefits in general, I think you're able to kind of be more vulnerable as a person when you've taken some time to really develop a relationship with your sensual self. It's tapping into your sensuality, because it takes vulnerability to do that, period. Let alone if you've been vulnerable with yourself, you can extend that vulnerability to those around you. And so I think, to me, that's the biggest benefit to it. And also just how it allows you to be able to create more intimate environments, intimate relationships, friend, platonic, and intimate as far as like couples, because what it does is it just takes that ego and kind of just swipes it out the way, and what's presenting is your most authentic, your most naked self. And so for me, I felt like for the longest I've always been taught certain parts of sensuality to be taboo, and you tend to think of it from a one-sided perspective because sex is involved in sensuality, but it's not encompassing of it. And so we learn, oh, we gotta keep that part quiet. So in us trying to keep that part quiet, we've kept everything quiet. So no one's talking about how there is sensuality in platonic friendships between the same sex. There's sensuality in your family relationships, but it's really just getting to the most vulnerable state. But of course, sex and all those other things can play a part into sensuality. But I just feel like because it's so taboo and it's only been advertised as this sexual nature, that we don't get to have the conversations about the other aspects of sensuality that make up our everyday life.
I feel you on that. In this episode, we're gonna be talking a little bit later about, the Good Pussy podcast. So I might as well get this out of the way. Can you just make it plain for folks? What's taking place, sexually. When you're, opening those hips and really getting, like that tension release. Like how is that gonna make improve the lifestyle for couples and otherwise?
Okay, so it definitely will increase your libido, because now you're it's like, I want to use a metaphor. Have you ever been in really tight shoes and your feet just hurt, right? And so you finally can get home and take those shoes off, and that instant release that you feel. It's the same exact way every time you roll your hips and you release another unwanted emotion, you release another unresolved issue. You're releasing. So what I always tell the ladies who follow my page is that journal while you're doing this, because those things are going to start to come up. And I say all that to say is, once all that's up, you have room to, you made room for love now. So then quite naturally, physically, your body is like energetically, your creative energy is at an all-time high, because that's where your creative space is located. And I don't know if people know this, but creative energy is sexual energy. So you have a way you can channel it. You can channel it into something creative like a project, or you can channel that energy into actually physically having sex. So most people who are doing these movements tend to find that their sex drive is higher. For the women, your hips are more open, which makes you're able to open your legs wider, which obviously makes the process of having sex a lot smoother, a lot more comfortable, and you make room for deeper penetration. But for men too, their hips being tight prevents range of motion and ability to move the hips in the process of stroking and things like that. So those are all just physical aspects that it can help and make a tremendous difference.
Amen. All right. Okay, so have you've done some of these challenges with people taking part in like some of your sensual yoga. What's some of the feedback that you've gotten from folks?
The biggest feedback I get is the release. A lot of people underestimate the release. And I'll never forget when I first felt it. It's like, especially if you never really rolled your hips, or it's like a foreign part of your body that you're just like, oh my God. Because you got to think, as children, especially girls, if you grew up dancing a lot, that was all the time. Our bodies were moving fluid all the time, outside, all of that. But as you get older, you forget that that space can do a lot, And so a lot of the feedback is always with that. They feel that energetic release early on. And these challenges are like 2 weeks, so it's not even very long.
Oh yeah, that's definitely doable. When you first started, like, posting some of these sensual yoga, challenges, like, was there like a hurdle that you had to go over, as far as like feeling comfortable posting it? Was there some self-talk that you had to do? Something you had to like convince yourself, like, this is a noble mission that I'm on right now. Like what went through your head? Because I know a lot of us get caught up. We're our being self-conscious, is crippling to really liberating ourselves, and also, more importantly, giving knowledge or something that can be beneficial to others.
Right. Okay, so the story of how I started this is very interesting. So I just woke up one morning, and this happens quite often, by the way. I woke up one morning and I was running my errands, doing my thing, and I was sitting in the car because I have been doing yoga for a couple months at this time, and I'm just like, yo, I feel like a totally different person. Like, and I had been posting it a little bit, and so something was just like, yo, people need to do this. I was like, what if I just did a 14-day challenge? And so I just did it. That same day, within those 5 minutes of saying that, I just got online. I posted, if I did a 14-day challenge and taught y'all how to do sensual yoga like I've been doing it, would you do it? And more than 5 people said yes. I only needed one person to say yes, but more than 5 people said yes. And then I created the page and 50 people signed up for the first challenge. And mind you, I'm just doing it. And I think it wasn't until like the day of the challenge, I would say mid-challenge is when I started to stop to think about, oh crap, I'm like out here doing, I didn't realize the impact until, I guess the impact of like how people could perceive it and how, daring it actually was, until I was already knee deep in it. Couldn't turn around.
Well, that's what's up, man. I know you have, you made mention to an upcoming sensual movement challenge. Like, what's that gonna look like, and when can we expect more from that for those who are interested?
Yes, so that is going to be announced this month. It's probably going to take place in February, just as, Valentine's Day, because the goal is to have some of the movements be some things that you can kind of do with your sweetie. But so yeah, I'll be announcing the official challenge dates this month, but it'll be in February when it actually gets started.
All right, well, that's what's up, man. I appreciate you sharing, what you got going on with, the Sensual Yoga. And, folks, can we just be like mature adults for a second? You know what I'm saying? This is something that, is a part of all of our lives. Let's just keep it real, man. This is something that we need from an emotional standpoint. Something that can help us get centered. I know that when I was doing yoga, I was just very much in tune with my body and my surroundings. So I know that, if you really get into it and you commit to it, it's something that can be hugely beneficial to you. Ashley, can you stick around a little bit longer? Because after the break, we got to get into this good pussy podcast.
Don't wake up when it's too late. They might think that you hate me. I'ma get it in while you wait. Okay.
And welcome back to the Think Tank Podcast. I am your host, Randy Hayes. I've been joined by the lovely Ashley Aset. In the first segment, we talked a little bit about sensual yoga. Ashley, thank you for joining us.
Absolutely.
Well, Ashley, we gotta dive a little bit deeper, man. Let me go ahead and I'm gonna unbutton this first button because we gotta talk about some stuff. Tell us, about this Good Pussy Podcast. What is it about? And also tell us how you came up with that name.
Ooh, I love it. Okay, so the Good Pussy Talk podcast is it's a divine feminine podcast. So it's a podcast that I created to have this level of taboo talk, but from a perspective of healing. Because again, like I was saying earlier, there aren't a lot of spaces created for sensuality to be discussed from a holistic point of view and a healthy point of view that gives us the ability to heal and kind of really address shit that we just haven't been able to address. And so me creating Good Pussy Talk podcast and then coming up with the name Good Pussy Talk, that one was interesting. I came up with that name actually almost a year ago before even dropping the podcast. I was in Atlanta. I was either in Atlanta or LA at the time. And it was LA. And I was just sitting out there and looking into the mountains. And I'm just like, I really want to do a podcast, but what am I going to name it? And I don't know, just Good Pussy Talk came to my mind. I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to say on this podcast. I don't even know what it's going to be about, but that's a good name. So I held on to it.
It's a great name.
I held on to it. And it's just funny because at the time I was heavy into my sensual yoga. And so I was living what I was discussing and currently discussed in the podcast. And so it wasn't the time to drop it. It wasn't the time to even do a podcast because I was still living through what I was going to be talking about. And so fast forward, here we are now. Good Pussy Talk podcast is a thing. Yes, the name is a little left field, but that's the point. I feel as though anybody who gives it a chance is non-judgmental. Because if you can get past your own judgment of just what it sounds like it is, and you actually hear it, you're like, oh shit, this is probably not what you expected. At least that's the feedback I get. Most people were not expecting me to talk about what I talk about in the podcast, and from the perspective in which I did too. And so that's why I was like, this name is good for keeping away people who wouldn't be open to the conversation, because if they're not open to the name, they damn sure won't be open to what's being talked about. But it also opens the door for people who aren't judged, you know what I'm saying, like not judgmental and are very open-minded, right, to actually have conversations about these things from a healthy, non-perverted, healing place. So
right. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'm qualified to, talk about, good pussy, but, I when I listen to your podcast, I think of like a safe place, talk about, issues of vulnerability. So, that's what's up, man. I've listened to quite a few episodes, and if anyone who's been following, me in this podcast, you'll know that I'm really big into mental health. So if you've had, issues with, trauma, or, if you have like, trust issues, if you wrestle with, getting in touch with your feminine and masculine side, there's a number of issues that, I would direct you to Ashley's podcast. Is pretty cool. And she already has the voice for it, so when you're listening, it just draws you in. So speaking of which, can you just talk a little bit more about that concept of divine femininity and divine masculinity? I think the divine part, people can get stuck on. So can you just break that down for us a little bit?
Yes. People do get stuck on it and they misuse it a lot. But divine is supposed to represent like this concept of, I say royalty, but like God. So we are made in God's image, right? So that same concept of it being a divine feminine, it's like the God version of feminine. Like you being your best feminine, your most free, like weight off, free of the trauma, free of the hurt, free of the pain, and in this essence, this purity, free from all the BS, you know? To me, that is when you say divine, because you're in your honor, you're in your rightful place, you're in alignment, divine. And it's the same for the masculine energy. And so, because we all have feminine and we all have masculine energy, but there is a very healthy side to a feminine and a very toxic side. And same for masculine is you got it really right or really left.
Okay.
And where you are on that scale determines how you move, how you act, how you function. And the goal, and when I speak on divine feminine, divine masculinity, is to get to that healthiest version of yourself, to get to the most authentic version of yourself in that process. So when we talk about the divine feminine, and I speak for women to say, hey, let's tap into your divine feminine energy, it's really tapping into your authentic self, tapping into the self that before the conditioning, the self
you were created to
trauma.
Be, right?
Exactly.
That you were created to be.
Exactly.
Can I say that? I just said that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Literally. And that's the same for the masculine. And when those two combined within you comes together, that's a whole person who's healthy on all areas of their life.
So, I want to slow down on that, femininity and masculinity for a second, because I think, sometimes we make, these caricatures of, what femininity is, and these caricatures of what masculinity is. Like, masculinity isn't putting bass in your voice, and femininity is not, damsel in distress, right? Can you break that down?
I would love to.
Let's go for it.
I'm gonna break it down so it'll forever be broke, because that is like a really big misconception. I feel like when it comes to when society takes something sacred and it becomes viral and sensationalized, and then now everybody's using the terms in their own way, and it's just what. So feminine energy is a receptive energy. When we think about it from the standpoint of science, it's our receptive side, our nurturing side, so on and so forth. So from a very basic level, to be a feminine being, you have to know how to receive, whether it's advice, whether it's direction, whether it's gifts. It's your ability to receive. And masculine is in a sense the ability to give, but the masculine energy is there to provide and protect. So we all have that instinct in us where we will provide and protect in a certain situation. That's the masculine energy within us. And so you have the ability to receive, love and nurture, but also provide and protect. And being able to do that for yourself kind of sets you at a baseline to build on, if that makes sense.
And I'm gonna put you on the spot a little bit here, Ashley, but when we were talking offline, you were saying that it was really a journey that you had to go through to get in touch with your feminine side.
Yes, a big journey. I think for me, I was raised, I felt like I was raised very, very feminine. Like my mother and my father, the way they kind of raised us together, I was definitely, given certain roles and aspects, where I was okay with depending on other people, because that's how they raised me, to kind of be very receptive, know how to receive help, whenever I needed it. But I've transitioned into this phase of my life where that was too far feminine. Like I had no masculinity that I was actively using to make decisions, to plan, to lead my life. And so that's when I had to really learn how to tap into that. But I tapped so much into that that I went all the way to that side. And then we start to fall into the independent woman. We start to fall into the I don't need anybody. No one's gonna come save me. I gotta do this out here by myself, which is a beautiful thing you do. I feel like you need to experience that in life. But I think we have to remember the word balance. And we have to remember that everything is supposed to be in balance. And that the feminine energy and the masculine energy are supposed to work together. You're not supposed to be on one end or the other. You're supposed to be right in the middle. And so when I started this journey, that is when I really started tapping into my feminine energy again. And then that's when I realized how much I was being masculine. And even down to its affected relationships that I was in and stuff like that, just because the ability of like not being able to receive and feeling like, you know, you don't want to take anything from anyone. I think that women alone don't realize like us saying no to help is us operating overly in our masculine. Now, granted, there are times where you need to say no, yes, but I'm saying for the extremes where it's like we say no to help all the time and think that, you know, our pride gets in the way of us needing help or, you know, having weak moments. We really torture our feminine energy, and I was doing that a whole lot.
Okay. Well, you know, that's another thing that I appreciate, you know, when I'm on social media, you know, I'm all into finding, you know, ways that we can improve ourselves. So that self-improvement, you know, comes in different forms, whether it be, you know, your health or your wealth or, you know, your levels of consciousness and relationships. And, you know, a lot of times I don't see, you know, that many people talking about, you know, women tapping into their feminine energy online. And then that was something that I also appreciated about you. And you know, I found it refreshing because, you know, a lot of the talk, you know, seems kind of divisive in a sense. And, you know, it's us versus them. It's not us versus them. Like, we need each other. And
yes.
That journey that you spoke on how you were here and then you got over here, but then you had to get back over here. I feel like that's a journey that, you know, a lot of our women get into, where they get over here and they don't ever really come back. You know, I understand that life can harden you, but, you know, one of the things I appreciated also when we talked about offline is, you know, you have this approach of being, you know, open when you have new opportunities or, you know, relationships that you're presented with. What does that look like, you know, when you talk about being open?
Yes. So it's like leading with your femininity. I feel like in dating and just in relationships in general, I had led with my masculine energy. And that, I thought it was cute. I thought it was like the way to go.
What is that? Break that down. Break that down. What do you mean? Because, you know, I mean, there's a lot of people out here playing games, man.
Yeah.
So, I mean, make it plain. What does that mean when you're leading with the masculine energy?
Aggressive, just straight, you know. And I think there's a time and a place. Like I said, I always speak about balance. So if I'm advocating for one side in this moment, I could be advocating for the other the next, because we need both. But when it came to dating, the aggressive approach, the like cat and chase, like to the game playing and trying to like premeditate someone else's moves so you could strategize this, that's all masculine energy. That's a football game right there.
Come on, man. You know, we not in high school anymore, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, I was telling my son the other day, like, you know, there was this girl that you know, likes him, and then, like, you know, the next day she like hit him and stuff and was like, you know, I hate you know what I'm saying, and stuff like that. I'm like, it's hard to explain, Levi, but that's like something that we go through. But it's hard to explain. But, you know, sometimes, especially with kids, like, they do little silly stuff like that to get your attention, you know. I mean, like, she's just hitting you because she likes you, and it sounds crazy even trying to explain that to him, but you know, that's like what you're talking about when we have this masculine energy, man. Like when we in our 20s and 30s, come on, we don't, in our 40s, we don't have time for these chess games. Like, you know, people want to see the authentic you. We don't need to see the chameleon, you know what I'm saying? If you're not right for me, great. There's other fish in the sea. You know what I'm saying? Like, we can still be cool, but let's go on our merry way. But you know, that masculine energy, that cat and mouse game, yeah, that gets old real quick, man. Okay, so you ditched the cat and mouse, and now what do you do? What does it look like now?
Now, I say for me, if the approach is go in vulnerable, go in feminine. And I think I learned a lot because I enjoy being feminine. I think I want to be like a butterfly, just floating around, creating things and just happy. Yes, I know how to work. I can grind. I do that, but I still do that so happy, and I position myself to be able to be happy while I live and do. And so for me, that's how I approach dating. I go into it very open, very happy, very bubbly. Like, you know, a lot of times I feel like with dating now, you have to like kind of crack open a woman's shell before you get that side of her, if that side of her does exist. I go into it like that.
It's not just dating. Sometimes it's marriage too.
Yeah.
Like,
and I just go straight into it just like that. And sometimes it works for people. Some people are like, okay, like this is a breath of fresh air. Like, and then sometimes people are like intimidated by it. Sometimes people, you know, it scares them because they are not used to it. But for me, what it allows me to do is always be authentic. Because I really, when I was dating with my masculine energy, as I mentioned before, I got sick of playing those games. I'm like, no, I just want to call you because I want to talk to you right now. Like, I don't want to have to time it and see if who's.
I knew y'all did that. I knew y'all did
what
that.
Time?
You gonna get thrown out of the sisterhood, man. You can't be giving out the details. I knew that was a thing, man.
I'm cheat codes today. No, but honestly, because I think we think in our minds like we're playing hard to get, but to me it's like, no, like if I want to see you, I'm going to tell you that I want to see you.
Wow.
Hey, I want to see you. Or like if I miss you, I'm going to tell you that. And men want that. Like
they do.
They want to, oh, she's actually thinking about me. I feel thirsty. I'm not actually being thirsty. Like she's thinking about me too. And I just think that you get closer to what you're trying to get to faster when you're just like yourself. And you got to decide early on, did this works for you or it doesn't.
So, you know, for all the, you know, the tactical women out there, you know, they're probably saying to themselves, like, you know, I can't be vulnerable because if I'm vulnerable, I'm going to be taken advantage of.
Ooh.
So yeah. What do you say to those who say you being vulnerable is being taken advantage of?
Okay, so I have it may be unpopular, but whatever. So first things first, I think any woman that says that, and I speak this because I used to say that all the time. I used to do that. And there's times where I still have to like remember not to do that because I've done it so much. But really, when you say things like that, that's a person who doesn't trust themselves, you know?
Ooh.
Because a lot of times we have to acknowledge that anything we've experienced in our dating, in marriage and relationships was based off of decisions that we made. And so when we learn what those decisions were, and when we learn how to heal get to the root of why we made those decisions and fix that, I shouldn't have to now block and guard my heart from the next thing because I'm not going to make the same decisions again. I'm going to make better decisions and not pick the same person. But when you haven't learned and you don't accept accountability that, you know, you chose that situation for your life, whether knowingly or unknowingly, and you don't get to the root of why and change it, hell yeah, you're going to go into the next situation scared, but you're not so much scared that that person is going to hurt you. You're scared that you're going to make the same mistakes again.
We blessing some people right now. I gotta stay at this a little bit longer. So, you know, with you being, you know, vulnerable and being the beautiful little butterfly and all that, are you finding that people are showing their true colors earlier, or not really? You still gotta, you know, read between the lines.
You still gotta read between the lines, and I learned that the hard way because you go into it and you're like, okay, well, if I'm vulnerable, then quite naturally, they're gonna be vulnerable too. No, a lot of times people will see that light, see that vulnerability in you, and they want that, because who doesn't want that? But their ability to be that is not where yours is at, because they haven't done the work to heal, and efforts to be honest with themselves. And a person who can't be honest with themselves damn sure can't be honest with you. So you have to vet. It's a vetting process, and you just got to know what you will and will not tolerate, and just know that. I feel like even in that respect, I have to say this, is that there's still a feminine way to stand in your truth and know what you deserve and know your worth, without it becoming this overly egoistic masculine energy you're throwing out. Just know what you are worth, and if a person isn't bringing that, just politely decline. We don't have to dog men because they shooting shots they should not be shooting and things like that. It's just a simple that actually doesn't work. But being strong enough to stand in that, because a man might still try. I'm telling you, they're gonna. But you just got, as a woman, you got to know that everything is a result of your decision making. So just make better decisions, but you got to heal to do that.
Amen. So, one of my favorite episodes of, Good Pussy Podcast, you were talking about, growing as you please. And you were just dropping bars on that episode. You were just dropping bars on that episode. I think we talked on some of the things that take place and those around you, and it's actually it's interesting that you say in people, places, and things around you as you grow. And can you just elaborate on what that growth process is like and how it affects the people, places, and things around you? Because here we are, we're in a new year. This is 2022, y'all. You know what I'm saying? There's so much in this episode that I hope that y'all will take and run with it, because there are things that will help you to be a better you. So as you grow, I think that Ashley did a great job in that episode in kind of charting out some of the things that you can expect, as how the people, places, and things will be impacted as you grow. Can you talk about that for a second?
Sure. I think the biggest thing is we have to realize the changes we make in our life don't just affect us. The decisions we make don't always just affect us. And I think once we understand, if I'm going to make this decision, it's going to have a ripple effect, a domino effect in a sense, on every person, place, and thing in my surrounding. So let's just use going vegan, for example. If I made a decision today, I want to change and I want to go vegan. And let's just say I'm married with kids, right? Your spouse and your children are going to feel that effect, because there's going to be different things in the refrigerator, and there's going to be different things in when you go out to eat, where you go out to eat. All of those things now have to change. And if you are going to be doing and enjoying life with these people, they're going to be a part of that change, whether for the good, the bad, whether they like it or not. That's how it affects people, because then how those people react to that change is just based upon that you altered their life just like you altered yours. So understanding that, I think, helps us better understand that something is going to cause a shift between the people in your life when you make a change. But now we're talking about the places. Now you move differently. You don't go to this, you don't go to, I don't know what that place is called, a place that serves only meat anymore. Maybe you don't maneuver in this way or go this place.
Or go to chow or something.
Right? And talking about people, places, and things. Oh boy, the way you maneuver around your house is different. How you cook things, how you interact with things, what things you got to get rid of, what things you can't do no more. All of that. So we think, oh man, I want to go vegan tomorrow, right? And I'm making this change, but I haven't considered any of that. I could go into it unrealistic, and a lot of people end up quitting because they're like, now my mom mad and now I can't go here. It's but if you knew all of that had the potential to be affected before you made the change, I think you would be in it from a place of knowledge and equipped and have the tools to get through the hard part.
Cool. Hey, so I remember DMing you after I, like, well, even as I was listening to the episode, for real. And there was a few words that kind of jumped out at me. So let's do a little quick fire,
Okay.
with some of those words that jumped out for me. I am a preacher. You know what I'm saying? I like my acronyms, my acrostics, and things like that. And so, there were some things that jumped out at me, like, I came up with a acrostic. You know what I'm saying? We sharing this. All right, we sharing this, right? We sharing this, right? Fit.
Yes.
FIIIT. So that's F with 3 I's and a T. So let's talk about flexibility.
So flexibility, it's the being flexible with whatever happens. And I think when we make a change, if you're anything like me, an extremist sometimes, everything needs to be perfect when you make this change, and it needs to go perfect. And what? Mistakes? No way. But that's not realistic. And so being flexible to where, okay, we're gonna keep on the whole vegan example. If I decided I wanted to make this change to go vegan, I'm gonna screw up a couple times. This is brand new to me, but being flexible enough with yourself to know, like, okay, if I did it I'll never forget, my best friend said this to me, and I just held on to it. We were talking about changing our eating habits, and this was when I was really about to get heavy on juicing. And I was being hard on myself because I wanted it to be perfect, but when you're purging like that, your cravings and everything go crazy because now you're depriving your body of that. And so she was saying, like, really be realistic in not having to go all the way 100% if you know that it's really, really hard for you to go cold turkey on things. And that's kind of when I talked about the cold. Some people do a cold turkey, some people don't. But it really just depends on the person. But being flexible in that approach, like knowing, okay, well, maybe I'll do vegan for 3 days this week. And then if I get to those 3 days this week and I'm okay, I'll add another day next week. Things like that is how we go flexible.
You also said that, as you grow, sometimes that growth can make people insecure.
Yes. And this is where you gotta know yourself. And knowing that people are mirrors and reflections. And if me going vegan and someone feels like, well, I eat meat, and especially if they know, like what the things meat could do to the body, etc. You can run into situations where people get insecure around you. They get insecure to eat meat around you because you're vegan now. And if you don't know that, you might take that personally, but that's a them problem, not a you problem.
And you also mentioned they can also get intimidated.
Yes, and this one it's not, the vegan example doesn't fly. But it's just knowing that growth means acceleration, which means you're moving forward, which means that if anything else that's not moving forward with you is left behind. And so we start to get into that place where people get intimidated by your ability to grow, your ability to move forward, because what it does is it shows them a reflection that they're getting left behind.
You also made mention as you grow that, people can also be inspired.
And that's the best part. And that's why you have to keep going, because there are going to be those people who see that and they want to do it too, who see that and been wanting to do it. And because you're doing it now, they feel like, you know what, I can do it too. Or they want to do it with you.
And I would have liked to end on a high note, but that's not the way the acronym works. So we got to end with those who feel threatened by your growth.
And that's the people who are in competition with you and you didn't realize. And so now they're like, wait a minute. She's actually doing better than me in this. And that's when it's like, oh, we were cool until you started doing better than me. Like, we're okay with being friends and, close, as long as you're not doing better than me. And that's when you start to learn those people who didn't want you to be better than me.
I just don't relate, man. It's so sad that we gotta be like that, man. I just don't relate, man. I'm looking at all of y'all out there. I'm y'all's biggest fans, like, for real, man. Like, if y'all are out there doing it, man, like, trust me, I'm like one that's rooting for you. I don't feel like I'm in competition with any of you all. Some of y'all are in the same markets as me. Some of y'all have the quote unquote same niche as me. But I'm rooting for all of you, man. I'm rooting for all of you. I don't get it. But hey, you know what I'm saying? It bees like that sometimes. So anyway, I've really enjoyed you kicking it with me for a little bit, Ashley. As we're winding down this episode, if you could just do us a favor and just tell people how they can keep in touch with you and follow you on your journey, follow you on your social medias.
Okay, so you can follow me on Instagram at Ashley Aset. Twitter, now people need to stop sleeping on my Twitter, because my Twitter is where I can just, the stuff I want to talk about, I just put on Twitter. And so you'll be able to kind of see more.
I know I'm missing some bars, man, on Twitter, man. I need to get on Twitter.
Twitter, please. Ashley Aset on Twitter. And then if you want to listen to the podcast without any video, then you can go to Apple Podcasts, Good Pussy Talk, and then it's on Anchor and Spotify. But then I really recommend subscribing to the YouTube channel, because I am going to start putting out some visuals soon and doing some videos. So you'll already be there, but the podcast is also on YouTube as well. And that's under Ashley Aset. So everything is under Ashley Aset.
You need to put some of that Sensual Yoga on YouTube as well.
I know. I'm really...
That was free. I gave you that for free.
I am manifesting a space that will allow me to be able to have a better visual production when it comes to YouTube, because especially with videos, you gotta have, and a cameraman. So if anyone out there who wants to help in that way, a videographer would be amazing, because you gotta get the angles.
No doubt. Okay. Well, that's what's up, man. Ashley, thank you so much for joining us on this episode of the Think Tank Podcast. I wish you the best of luck in all that you do, and you keep being that light shining in the community. And this is a wrap for this episode of the Think Tank Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. Peace out. We love you, and God bless.